Hi, I'm Dr. Duke, Academic Director of Freedom Project Academy. Very proud to be here with Alex Newman, who writes the Newman Report for Freedom Project Media. And this is our weekly segment, Takeaway. Alex, you wrote a really fantastic article this week on single-payer health care. And it doesn't seem to matter what we do. We can elect Republicans, we can elect out people like Hillary Clinton, we can give the Republicans control of the House, the Senate, the Congress, the Assembly, on and on and on. Nothing seems to change. Tell us a little bit about your article and what the premise is.
Sure. Well, thanks very much, Duke. It's great to be with you. And basically, I started off the article by pointing out that the Republicans passed this supposed repeal of Obamacare, which really is not a repeal of Obamacare. In fact, it keeps huge swaths of Obamacare, including a lot of the most problematic and unconstitutional elements. For example, they're going to keep with the subsidies, they're going to keep with the penalties, they're going to keep with the mountains and mountains of regulations, and they've just added some flexibility clauses that allow states to supposedly opt out if they build a mini Obamacare at the state level. So really, this is not a big improvement, and unfortunately, it keeps us going along the way of a collapse of the healthcare market, which will eventually be used to push nationalized single-payer healthcare.
So in other words, this is not a repeal of Obamacare. We knew that. This isn't even a diminution necessarily of the taxes. I read this morning that Republican congressmen and senators are now saying that the taxes, the tax burden for Obamacare is not likely to move either. So we've been lied to again. What do you credit this to? What is happening in Washington? Why is Trump so quickly backpedaling on all of his promises, particularly with regards to Obamacare?
That's a really good question. I think a lot of people have been wondering what's going on. I think one of the big problems is that so many of the people around him are actually swamp creatures. And, Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House, comes to mind immediately as one of the swamp creatures that really needs to be drained along with the rest of the swamp. So I think that's a big part of the problem. I don't know that Trump fully understands the implications of this. And I don't know that he really is operating on, constitutional principles, because the principle here is federal involvement in healthcare is unconstitutional. And then the other principle is that government meddling in anything tends to make things worse. So we're not seeing either of those principles reflected in governance here. And I think a big part of the problem is bad advisors and swamp creatures who are just dependent on this swamp.
If the Republican Congress is filled with swamp creatures, I think I agree with you. That makes Paul Ryan the creature from the Black Lagoon, sort of the uber swamp monster. Tell us a little bit, Alex. How soon do you see this transition happening? Obviously, Obamacare is unsustainable. It's going to be almost as unsustainable now that the Republicans are in charge of it. How long is it, do you think, before the infrastructure fails? And what do we do? What do we tell all those small business owners who still are clamoring for relief, but don't seem to be getting it?
Well, I think the clock is ticking on the healthcare system. I think it's very likely to explode, certainly within our lifetimes. I mean, costs are out of control. Access to healthcare is diminishing. The baby boomers are now retiring, and they're expecting to go on government-subsidized healthcare. So this is going to be a ticking time bomb that eventually is going to explode, and it's eventually going to be used. And we've seen some of this already with Bernie Sanders and Barack Obama pushing for a single-payer system. It's going to be used to push for even more government control, even less freedom. So the question is really, when is that going to happen? Because if we continue on this course, it is almost inevitable that the whole thing is going to come crashing down. You see Obamacare is imploding already. You have some places where almost all the health insurers have actually left the Obamacare markets. They just won't participate. And who can blame them? I mean, it's a giant fraud, and it's only going to result in more and more pain. So unfortunately, the real solution is to get the government out of healthcare, but we see very, very few people in Washington talking about that.
So in other words, we have one-party system in Washington, Republicans and Democrats, two sides of a very fraudulent coin. And so nothing's going to change. Things aren't going to get any better. And we have a president who, even though he's an outsider, doesn't seem to pursue outsider paths. Now that he's in office, he seems to rely on Ryan and McConnell to guide him a little bit. He seems to be working with insiders in his own family. And so it doesn't bode well. The title of our segment is Takeaway, Alex. In the remaining 30 seconds, give us your takeaway from this circumstance.
Well, I mean, frankly, I think it just means we need to redouble our efforts. It means we're not working hard enough to get the point across. We need the Constitution obeyed. That means no federal meddling in healthcare. And as a general economic principle, and I teach economics for Freedom Project, markets deliver products, goods, and services very, very well, very, very efficiently. They reduce costs. They come up with good innovations. When you start getting the government involved, it leads to disaster. So what we need to do here is redouble our efforts to promote these ideas. Freedom works. Government does doesn't, and we need to get the Constitution obeyed. And we need to obviously work harder because, considering what the Republicans just did, we've got a long way to go.
If you enjoyed this video and all of our videos, please consider a tax-deductible donation so we can keep the whole thing free for you. I'm Dr. Duke. Thanks for watching.